Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Derek. So joining us on the stage today is Congressman Wiley Nickel of North Carolina's 13th District. Congressman is a Democrat who serves on the House Financial Service Committee and the Digital Assets Subcommittee. But most importantly, he's been a fantastic champion of the entire digital asset ecosystem, from leading the resolution to nullify SAB 121 to helping garner Democratic votes for the Fit for the 21st Century Act. We can always rely on the congressman to tell us how it is. So in light of that, let's begin our discussion.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's start with the most recent news. So this morning, I saw you wrote a letter to Gary Gensler. And so I'll turn the mic over to you and just ask what was in the letter and why write a letter now.
Yeah, well, good morning, everyone. It's great to join you here today. I serve on the House Financial Services Committee and wrote a letter to Gary Gensler about SAB 121. What we're seeing with Gary Gensler's open hostility to digital assets is not good for the industry. It's not serving President Biden's best interests. And frankly, he's turning this issue into a political football, and that is not helping the Biden administration. This should be a bipartisan issue. This is an issue that should not become partisan, but my very real concern is that it's becoming more and more partisan, and that's a real problem. So I'm hopeful that Gary Gensler will rethink the regulation by enforcement tack that he's made, and in this one instance withdraw SAB 121, rework it so we can have a real chance for custodial banking to keep those those digital assets with well-regulated U.S. banks. I think it's an easy ask in a way that he could avoid a lot of trouble and issues for the administration. And on this issue, SAB 121 passed Congress in a bipartisan way. It's going to pass the Senate, I think, tomorrow, and then it's going to go to the president. But if Gensler just withdraws it, he can help make this issue more bipartisan, get it out of this political arena where it should not be.
Right. And so do you think digital assets will remain bipartisan? I know a lot of folks saw President Trump come out in support of crypto, and of course President Biden threatened to veto your SAB 121 resolution. So do you see it staying bipartisan or becoming bipartisan?
I do, because I think a lot of people in the administration understand the potential and the importance of digital assets, and I think what we're seeing is the SEC really out of step with the rest of the administration. So I hope people can get that message, but right now the news is not good, and it's becoming more and more partisan, and I think Gary Gensler has a lot of blame in where things are moving.
Right, and so there is one really kind of highlight of that. Last week, we watched 21 Democrats join over 200 Republicans to pass your resolution nullifying the SEC's SAB 121. And so, I'm curious, what was it like kind of garnering support? Were you surprised by the, overwhelming Democratic support for your resolution?
Yeah, 21 Democrats was a lot of was a big number for an issue that's hard for a lot of Democrats to vote against the administration. The administration came out against it. It made some public statements about the bill, so that's hard for many Democrats. But many privately conceded that we're right on the policy. The SEC overstepped. Congress has a role to play. And one of the things too that was really interesting, the first time in our nation's history we had a vote on digital assets. And we're dealing with securities laws that are 100 years old, and we have never had a major vote in Congress on this issue. And next week we should have a vote on a very significant bill for regulating the industry in a very responsible way. It'll be a big deal, but I just keep trying to make that point that we just have never addressed this issue in Congress.
Right. And so do you see potentially the same kind of group of Democratic members kind of coming over next week that voted in favor of your resolution to then vote in favor of the Fit for the 21st Century Act?
I do. I think we're going to have a larger group of Democrats. We're working to make the case, and I certainly would encourage everybody here. You've got a member of Congress. You've got 2 members of the Senate. Make your voice heard on what you think the future should be for the U.S. and our approach to Web3. But I think we're going to see a larger group of Democrats in support of the bill, and when we educate people on the issues, we get a much better number of votes.
Right. And so taking a few steps back, I know, you haven't been afraid to push back on the Biden administration, even though you're a Democrat. So what do you see your role in conducting oversight of the administration, maybe in the context of serving in Financial Services Committee?
Yeah, I'm a Democrat. Republicans have a very narrow majority in the House. So a lot of the work that we do is working to move things into the bipartisan category for floor votes, but the other part is pushing back on the administration and the regulators when we think they're moving in a bad direction. And unfortunately, we've had a number of issues with the SEC, and that's a place where I'm not afraid to push back when we think they're moving our country in the wrong direction.
Right. And so I know you've been working to get Democrats, on your camp and in the pro-crypto kind of group. What messaging works with those folks? How do you get people into our side? And how do you take such a complicated issue and kind of boil it down for those folks?
Yeah, no, and you got to be really quick when you're talking to members of Congress. You don't have a lot of time. And it's a simple message. This bill that we're going to see on the floor for a vote next week passed out of our committee in a bipartisan way. I was one of 6 Democrats to join with my Republican colleagues in support of it. But the message is pretty simple. Whether you love crypto or you hate it, you should want to have regulation. And that's what this bill does. It regulates the industry, it provides regulatory clarity, and it's going to protect consumers. And right now, we don't have that. With FTX in the Bahamas, you don't have those consumer protections. But if we do this bill, if we regulate the industry, provide regulatory certainty, that's a good thing. That's something that Democrats should be in favor of. We like regulating things, and that's what the bill does.
Right, absolutely. And so earlier this month, you, again, wrote to Gensler with Congressman Flood asking to approve options trading on spot Bitcoin funds. So why did you feel this was necessary, and why write the letter?
Again, it's just one of these unnecessary fights, hostility towards the industry. If I'm going to be polite about it, could say that the SEC could do a lot better with more carrot and less stick. But in this case, you shouldn't be taxed on money until you sell just the way you would do for stocks.
Right. And so last month, you and Congressman Ferguson introduced the Providing Tax Clarity for Digital Assets Act. The act would, clarify within the tax code that digital asset rewards are to be collected at the point of sale, while codifying staking rewards as creative property. So the tax treatment of digital assets can seem like a very niche, very nerdy issue. So why did you get involved, and why is it not the case that it's not easy to brush aside, that we have to
I think that you kind of step back on these issues in Congress, and right now we have the best financial markets in the world. The dollar is the global reserve currency. We do so well with our sanctions, with everything, because of our role. And I want to make sure in 50 years we continue to have that place in the world. And if we bury our head in the sand on digital assets and Web3, other countries will eat our lunch. We will see jobs move overseas. That innovation will go elsewhere. And we will not be the global player that we are right now in 50 years if we lose sight of the importance of the digital dollar.
Right. And so, let's back up a little bit. I'm personally curious. I know a lot of folks have been curious about this. Given your background, what got you interested in digital assets? How did you become a champion of crypto in Congress? And, given that you started with Al Gore's campaign and then moved to Obama, that's not necessarily the normal trajectory of somebody who becomes a champion for crypto. So how did you become one?
I think this is one where our politics is really missing where the majority of the American people are. And, a fifth of registered voters own crypto. That's, just under 20%. That's a huge number of people. And, I see this as an issue where folks are just missing the big picture. And if we have this conversation in 10 years and we look back, anyone who's opposed to crypto and Web3 and the blockchain and the potential that it has to revolutionize the way we deal with things in the US, it's going to be like you were voting against the internet. So that's where I see this, and I think when we have this conversation, hopefully in 10 years, we'll be able to say, well, yeah, no, that was a place where people just missed the mark.
Right. I hope the conversation in 10 years looks a lot different than it does now. But How do you view American competitiveness in the digital asset space? Are we losing out? Are we lagging, not leading?
We are, because again, Congress has never voted on legislation for crypto or digital assets. We haven't addressed the issue, and we're dealing with securities laws that are 100 years old. The Howey test. They had no idea that we would have these products that we do and the ability to move money the way we can. So we need to get into the 21st century. That's what the focus of my work is, and it's a place where the more you talk to people, this should not again be a partisan issue. And unfortunately, it's really easy to move things into these partisan lanes. I'm trying to make sure we avoid that.
Right, absolutely. And so, we're very curious about how we can keep the industry here in the U.S. So I'm curious if you've had any thoughts about that, and are you watching it fleet away?
Yeah, no, I'm very concerned. I think number one, we're a pretty big market, so there's a real incentive to stay and bear with us. But we've got two bills that are moving through Congress. I think that provide a ton of potential. Stablecoin bill, which is by all accounts very close, and this digital assets market structure bill, the regulatory bill fit for the 21st century. We just call it Fit 21 amongst ourselves. But those are two big bills that have bipartisan support. I believe that if we had a straight up or down vote in the House and the Senate, both would get a sizable majority of votes, certainly more than half. So that's the challenge, is just getting things to the floor for a vote in a Republican House and in a Democratic Senate. And it's one of the places that I hope we look back as a bright spot on this Congress, which right now we're on track to be the least productive Congress in our nation's history. We haven't gotten a lot done. I have voted for Speaker now 19 times in my first year in Congress. So it's a challenge to get things done, but if you work real hard, I'm hoping that this is an issue and a place where we can find some agreement.
Right. And so do you see Fit for the 21st Century Act and stablecoins on a dual pathway to move through Congress? Are they moving at the same destiny, or do they have separate destinies? One may pass, one may falter. What do you see?
I do. I think they're separate tracks. I think if you're betting, stablecoin, is a better bet that it makes it all the way through. Maxine Waters, our ranking member on the Financial Services Committee, said they were very, very close. I know where those discussions are. And they're it's very small. It's smaller issues on stablecoin. So hopefully that's going to be a bright spot. And then the Fit for the 21st Century Act is again one where if we can get a vote in both chambers, and we will in the House, I believe next week, we'll be able to move that along as well. But for me as a Democrat, the issue that matters is the number of Democratic support. As you move a bill through the House to the Senate, if it's a smaller group of Democrats, it makes it a little more challenging to move it through the Senate. But if it's a bigger group, then we're gonna be able to get it done. So I encourage folks, if you have an opinion about it, share it with the folks who represent you in the U.S. Congress.
Right. And so how should folks here get involved? How can we support you in your mission? We see you coming up next week. We're all very excited. I'm sure Twitter's going crazy. Yeah. But how can we support you? How can we support our lawmakers who are champions?
It's just about education. The more you educate people on the issues, the better you do. I frankly do a lot better with my younger colleagues on the Democratic side. They're more open to new technology. They understand the potential. It's sometimes a little tougher with some of the older members who may be still using a flip phone and have their emails read to them. But it's just education. If you get there and you make a compelling case, you're gonna win people over. But that's just the way Washington works. You gotta make those visits, lobby your elected representatives, and this is really an issue where education makes a huge difference.
So would you say you see crypto as not necessarily partisan one way or the other, but generational?
I think there's a huge generational part to it. It's new technology. It's a big change. I'm 48. More or less have grown up, in this ecosystem with these issues. If you're in your 70s or 80s, it's a long way off. So I think that's a part of it. But again, you have lots of open-minded people, and and that's what I would encourage folks. Get to Twitter, take to contacting your members, try to get meetings if you can, and push on this issue, because it would be a real shame if this becomes a political football, and that doesn't help the industry. It doesn't help anyone if it becomes something where all the Democrats are opposed and all the Republicans are in favor of it. That's not the place where I think most people are in the Congress and in the country too, with a significant amount of voters. And the point I've tried to make to the Biden administration is this issue only loses votes for them if they oppose it. They only lose votes, and they should be trying to do things that bring our country together. And I'm hopeful that we'll see. And I know we have a different view on this issue in a lot of other parts of the administration other than the SEC. So I hope that's the message that people will get to see as this issue plays out over the next year.
Right. And so before you leave us today, it would be a shame if we did not honor you in some way. And so we wanted to recognize you for your dedication to our industry and for being such a strong champion for the digital asset ecosystem as a whole. And so we do have an award for you, hopefully, coming out soon. But for your dedication and for being so common sense, and especially for standing toe-to-toe with Gary Gensler, we did want to present you with the Digital Chamber's Blockchain Champion Award for 2024. This is the only award that we will be giving today. This is a huge honor to you and to everyone, and so we wanted to thank you very much for it all.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you.